we will be discussing about the challenges of higher education, what higher education currently in India is facing due to pandemic. That's COVID-19. So for that discussion, we have eminent Dr. S.S Mantha, who is former AICTE Chairman and currently Chancellor of Yale University. Very warm welcome, sir. Thanks for joining us for this discussion.
Thank you. It's good to be talking to you all on education, where I have been all my life, except probably the very first year after my graduation when I worked for Mahindras. Apart from that, I've been in education for a long time, and probably I can speak a little on my experience, my thoughts and my ideas.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So from you only, sir, because you are really eminent, you are you have a great vision about the higher education of India, and you really know everything so well, and you're seeing this phase of pandemic in India. So for you, what are the major challenges what currently Indian education is facing?
There are a lot of challenges, in the sense that like every other business, even education has been disrupted in many ways that we probably never thought of, and it has a lasting effect as well. Probably it will have a lasting effect to continue for many more years, whereby we really need to understand the disruption, the challenges that it has posed, the concerns that the entire education community will have, and probably some pointers to handling those concerns, so that the education part of it, the academics part of it, is not affected from a student's perspective. So that's very important to understand, that the universities are there, the institutions are there, they're all there because the students are there, and therefore if their interest is not is the prime, then probably everyone would have something to answer for. Now, having said all that, there are essentially two challenges currently to mention. The first one is very immediate, and the second one is much more long term. In the initial, several institutions have been trying to complete their curriculum, which was disrupted with probably 3-4 months back, somewhere at the end of March. And some of the institutions have done very well in switching over to another mode of learning, the online learning mode. But not all the institutions have been able to do that. We have in this country about more than 1,000 universities in the higher education space, and we have about 45,000 institutions, all spread all across the country, and the country is massive. Distance-wise, people-wise, and the needs that are so different from place to place, and from people to people, and so on. So therefore, it's very necessary to reach out to every one of them wherever they are located, and that itself is a big challenge. Some of the institutions have tried to do that fairly successfully. They have made their teachers create some content, some good content wherever it's possible. Some of the institutions have also subscribed to the private coursework that is available, like for example the Coursera or Udemy or edX, and so on. Now all these things will be successful if the institution itself has some hands-on experience of using learning management systems and trying to integrate different systems. And if they have a really good IT infrastructure within their campuses, they have been able to do that fairly successfully.
Right.
But wherever they are not there, they have been struggling to do that. Now that's the first part of it. The second part of it is conduct of examinations in the current scene, where people cannot come together in order to conduct a face-to-face kind of examination.
Right.
So therefore, people are trying to look at some online solutions and so on. There are several solutions available even on that. But again, that's a technology challenge. And unless you have the right tools, which can be procured, you will not be able to do justice to the kind of examinations you're conducting. Most of them are subjective, and for an objective kind of assessment, probably it works to a certain extent if you can take care of the authenticity of the people on the other side, so therefore, there are systems, there are biometrics which are used in order to check the authenticity, in order to find out whether the student on the other side is the student who's supposed to give those examinations and so on. But those kind of tools are not available for every single student, for every single institution. Besides that, many of our institutions are in the rural places where even internet, bandwidth connectivity, these are challenges. Forget about reaching out with good content and so on. They don't even have good bandwidth connection, good internet connection. They don't have smartphones. They don't have laptops. Many of them have to go to the institute and use institutional resources to get across to learning online and so on, which is not possible at this point of time. So therefore, the immediate challenges are mainly these: how to reach everyone, whether he's in the city or in the rural place or in a village or wherever they are. And the second is to complete the curriculum and conduct the examinations in a fair manner, declare the results, and get into the next academic cycle. So on. Now this is all in the immediate
Right.
time frame. But when you look at the long-term time frame, there are many other challenges which will have to. Of course, the challenges that I have spoken about in the immediate term, they are applicable as much in the long term as well. But the long term begins with a different set of problems. First of all, it starts with admissions. Many of the institutions have online exams which try and filter out the best of the students and the next best and so on, in order that the admissions can happen smoothly. Now that process itself is also disturbed in many. I mean, these are fine with autonomous institutions which have their own infrastructure, their own means to those kind of facilities, or maybe institutions like IITs, and believe me, even IITs have been disrupted. The JEE is not yet to be completed, and so on. So therefore, the common entrance examinations is a casualty. Many state governments which do centralized admissions to their institutions, they have not completed their, they have not even started their process of admissions and so on. So right from that point, there is a huge challenge. Assuming there are students, maybe in some form this is taken care of, and students are admitted to the institutions, maybe by September end, and so on. The next challenge begins as to how to reach them with the right kind of material, the right kind of teaching, learning experiences, and so on. Higher education being what it is, you also have applied sciences, and you have applied subjects and so on, and they need hands-on experience. They need lab work. They need workshops. They need a lot of hands-on skills to be competency-based skills to be built, and where a lot of interaction must happen. Now, is that all going to happen through virtual labs, simulations, and so on? Something can be done through simulations, but not everything can be done through simulations. So, how does the next academic term progress? Whether a class of 60 can at all be engaged? Now, if it has to be broken into 2 parts or 3 parts, when do you call which batch at what time? These are massive challenges, because you also have to look at those social distancing norms, and you can't let them mingle together. I mean, it's nice to say that online education is good, blended learning is good, but there is something called as campus learning experience. You
Exactly.
can't sit at home and say that I have done everything that I would otherwise do in a campus. Now that's not learning. That's maybe you do the semantics part of it. You are fine with the grammar, but you're not really fine with what it has really taught you. So these are some of the major challenges. There are of course solutions to beat these challenges, but the real concern is how do you make these things happen in every nook and corner of the country. Like we have Northeast, which is extremely difficult to connect. We have places which are very highly devoid of industry base, and we have institutions where teachers are not there even in numbers. To go to a classroom and stand and give a lecture, forget about the quality of the lecture. Even to give a lecture, you don't have people. And the quality of those who are available is again a big question mark. Now, in this kind of reference, if we are suddenly have to move to online education, unless some variable in this, which is, of course, the most important variable is the content
Right.
and the technology that drives that content. Now, if these two things if you cannot make happen, make them happen for every student, then it's a massive challenge. So I believe there are solutions, but then we need to keep these challenges in mind and create solutions as we go along. We don't have too much of time to
Right.
experiment either.
After so long, I'm hearing from someone who really feels yes, campus life is something, and students are going to miss a lot because how much discussion I am having, everyone is in much favor of yes, future is blended learning, it's online learning. But I'm really happy to hear from someone as being a student. If I imagine my whole student life or my whole college life as just a virtual thing, I really think I am going to miss a major of part of my learning. It's just not about the education what we are getting. Is I'm sure a lot of things gathered around in the campus. So I
True.
think one of the
Absolutely.
major, one of the major conflicts what the country is going through is about the examination, and that what after the UGC announced compulsory final year examinations, uh, states, as I'm sure we all know that, have conducted examinations. After that, students have increased number of cases, and Maharashtra and few other states are also against it. So, what's your take about it, and how we can go hand in hand without impacting students about it? Yes, their health
Yeah,
is
I mean,
priority.
yeah, this is a very important part of a student's life. I mean, somehow over a period of time, we have used those, the Macaulay's kind of education has gone into the system so much that we tend to go by the British pattern of learning, the British pattern of examining students, and so on. I don't know whether it's right or wrong. I mean, I have also gone through the same system. And I know the campus life that a student would miss, because I was a part of a hostel system. I stayed in a hostel for many years, and I know the kind of problems that there are. Having said that, the examination part must be relooked at by everyone concerned. I mean, we have national accreditation agencies, NAC and NBA, and both have made accreditation mandatory. Now, mandatory means every institution will have to go through that quality process.
Right.
Now, whether every institution actually goes through that process, what happens if they don't go through, these are points of debate, and I may not be going into that at this point of time. But the accreditation agencies, they have one thing which they one point which they stress upon, and that is continuous evaluation.
Mm.
Now, continuous evaluation means every unit, your entire course curriculum is divided into course outcomes. Your program is defined on program outcomes, and without specifying the program outcomes and the course outcomes, your accreditation process, even your documents won't be accepted. So therefore, uh, by breaking down the entire curriculum into smaller portions and creating the course outcomes, the program outcomes, and so on, what you're actually doing is you're trying uh, to give to the student a smaller uh, part of the curriculum each time as a unit, and then assess that, and then go to the next unit based on the learning outcomes that he has from the first unit. Assuming that the curriculum is properly designed, your second unit will be dependent on what you learned in the first unit, and so on. So having done this, you are being evaluated every single time that a unit is completed. And if you have a course which is basically broken down into, let's say, 8 to 10 units, you are assessed at least 8 to 10 times in that semester, which is actually about 14-15 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you have already assessed him, my take is, do you really have to still assess him at the end of the semester for the entire curriculum again, once again? So therefore, if that process is properly done, if that handholding is properly done, the continuous evaluation is properly done, then I really do not think that there is a need to get into again a 100 mark or 70 mark or 80 marks full paper, And if you really see the examination system, I can say this with fair amount of confidence that if I go back and solve my 5 previous question papers, I will be able to sit here and predict at least 75% of my paper in the next semester.
Yes,
Now,
exactly.
whether this is science, whether it's arts, commerce, law, engineering, whatever you talk about, the real examination and the real understanding of concepts actually is a part of that continuous evaluation. It's not a part of that end semester examination where you more or less try and assess him on some learning that he has on an overall basis. That is important, but then it's not the end and an answer for every ill of the system.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, my view is, instead of getting into that mode and then extending your term because you can't conduct that examination, and because you can't do that, you don't do the next year admissions, and the entire cycle gets displaced. So therefore, my view is that if the continuous assessment has been done,
Mm-hmm.
in those places, a final year examination may be deferred, at least for this year. The second point that comes in handy is most of the people have semester systems these days. Very few, except for the first year in some of the disciplines, everything is semester based, and choice based credit system is what UGC also insists, and that I believe is the way of studying in most of the institutions. Now, having done that, you already have, if I am in the 5th semester, I already have gone through first, second, third, and fourth semester. I mean, I can't become suddenly extra intelligent or extra, studious, or I mean, exceptions will always be there. I'm not discounting that. So what I'm saying is, if a certain weightage is given to my marks that I've got in first, second, third, and fourth, let's say 30% of weightage is that. So I aggregate all those marks and convert it to 30% of the marks, and take that as one unit, and then do my continuous evaluation and base 70% of that. These percentages can vary depending on how they look at the whole system. And then you have a certain pointer to how you would have probably progressed in the had there been a face-to-face 3-hour examination.
Right.
Now, that's the first part of it. The second part of it, look at the assessments, the way the assessments happen. Look at any university, any affiliated university, affiliation-based university. For example, I am in Mumbai. I am Mumbai University. There are 800 institutions which are affiliated to Mumbai University. A Pune University, which is across the door for me, maybe 120 miles or away or whatever. Now that university has almost 900 institutions, 915 institutions affiliated. What kind of assessment are we talking about? There is a central assessment where some 30-40 people who are knowledgeable in that subject come together, and there are several subjective questions. Each person has his own understanding. There is no common basis. It's very difficult to expect that there is a common basis and everybody would follow the same thing. Even if you gave the master key answers and things like that, hardly anything happens on those kind of things. And then you have a subjective assessment at the end of the day, right? And then the proof of how effective that is on the number of cases you receive for revaluation. Look at the number that you receive for that. And you also look at the number who clear after reevaluation. Now, what does all that mean? It means that a system that we have been following for years and years together, and just because no one wants to change that, people think change is the most difficult thing to accept, but people don't realize that change is the only thing that is permanent. Unless you change, you don't get at anything. So therefore, instead the question paper itself is a question mark. The assessment is another question mark. And now we are saying that unless I conduct that 3-hour examination, let the student do all that and then get into his assessment. And when are you going to give him an option to check his results?
Right.
These kind of problems are there. So my view is people should be pragmatic at this point of time. Look at alternatives. If there is absolutely no alternative available, then probably you will still need to go online because the social distancing will not allow you to do that.
Yes.
Conduct your examinations. So therefore, it's very, very, very difficult to accept that this year there could be a way out in conducting the formal kind of examinations as we know of. Therefore, in order to reach out to the students, we must create a credible system. Of course, whatever system you create must be credible enough to take the students and the parents into confidence. That's what I believe must happen. Many people are talking about, people are talking about a mark sheet which is very sacrosanct. And if the final year examinations are not held, then how is he given a mark sheet? In fact, I've heard some of the universities have put some stamp on that, saying that this is a COVID-19 mark sheet. This is absolutely ridiculous. I believe you cannot play with the student's life in that manner. It is not his mistake that COVID happened.
Yes, exactly. You can't, the whole 4-year program they are into.
Absolutely. 3 years, 4 years, they have slogged and they have come to that place. Now, it is very necessary that you you make some assessment and give him a mark sheet. Now, how do you assess? That is something you decide. Not say that I won't conduct the examination or I'll conduct the examination only in the way I know of. Right. This is something that must be sorted out. There are many ways of sorting it out. I just gave you some ways. But since we have time limitations, I'm not getting into all those other ways of assessing students.
Yes, you have shared amazing kind of assessment colleges, universities can implement in their systems and can assure student ultimately won't have to suffer, which is currently, I'm sure, somewhere we are doing injustice to the students.
Under no circumstances a student can be put to disadvantage.
Yes, yes.
So an institution runs, a university runs, is there, faculty is there, the infrastructure is created only because the students are there.
Exactly.
Assume they are not there, then what for are you, do you have all these things for? So it is the student-centric system that you should run, not an administration-centric, nor a faculty-centric system that you should run.
Right, very true. So with the online system, as our education has shifted to online with the pandemic, I really appreciate all the faculties around the country who has really put great effort to shift their teaching suddenly to a very different mode. But with the time, what we are seeing these days, online bullying of teachers has increased a lot. So, how a faculty, a teacher who is teaching the classroom should stand by that? What can be norms maybe set by the college or university itself, and what take they can take themselves in the class itself, or what are tips, or what's your take about this?
I don't know. I mean, you have raised a very extremely pertinent question. I don't know if there is faculty bullying, but then there are a lot of other things that are happening in a so-called webinar kind of learning system. You know? First of all, in the see, webinars all can be very informative, provided you have a debate and an intelligent debate, and if there is a moderator who can bring the best out of the people, then there is something to learn from a so-called webinar. But if I have to conduct lectures in the so-called medium of going on Zoom and creating providing link to join to the students, maybe say 90 of them, 100 of them, I don't know how many of them, they will all log in, and you will probably get a number that 100 people have logged in, and then you will find that the teacher invariably telling them that please switch off your audio because there is too much of disturbance, and please switch off your video because the bandwidth is not sufficient. The whole there are jar images and so on. So the audio is off, the video is off. Only the teacher is faculty is probably saying something, and as it's all assumed that the other side is listening and receptive enough, and so on. Now this itself has several fallacies built into this mode, because first of all, uh, if I in an asynchronous mode of learning, the it's very difficult to keep the other side on and engaged if the lecture is not interesting enough. Now, even if it is like interesting enough, how do you ensure that the other fellow is actually engaged and not doing something else? So for my attendance sake, I'll switch on the video, I'll switch on the audio, I'll even send some good morning and things like that to people. And then if I'm a little more enterprising, I'll even shoot off some question saying that I register my presence. And then for most of the time, I'll do something else because neither my audio is on, my video is on, and so on. So this is a very ineffective way, and probably killing the goose that lays the eggs kind of scene. So I would, but then I suppose we don't have anything else at this point of time. So two, three things must happen according to me. I mean, the lectures as they are happening, they must happen and should be restricted to about 30-35 minutes. not more than that, because nobody can be engaged to a, you
Beyond
know,
that.
pure monologue for more than 30, 35
Right.
minutes.
Right.
That's the first part of it. And the faculty has to be trained. They have to understand the psychology of an online process, and they should encourage the students to do the chatting and asking questions. And it doesn't have, actually a good webinar doesn't happen like that. You need a moderator, you need somebody to collect the questions, somebody who is equally uh,
Engaging.
well versed with the subject to give the answers. So there are two, three people actually managing the whole show. But sitting in a house, in my own house, I mean, I giving a lecture and I'm not interested half the time. The other fellow is not interested probably for any length of time. That really doesn't help. So the faculty must be trained. Most important, the lectures cannot go beyond 30, 35 minutes to engage, keep the people engaged. And there must be interactive, as much as possible, interactive sessions. And these lectures must be recorded and converted to some format where they can be floated on on their WhatsApp and things like that. So those things help. And then the institution has to invest in learning management systems where they can properly upload these content that they are creating every day and so on, so that it is available to the student to learn in his free time,
Hmm.
off time, and so on,
Right.
while engaging students. Personally, I believe the audio can be off, but the video must be on,
Hmm.
so that, and then there must be the faculty who is who is delivering the lecture must get hold of the all the PCs on the other side. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which means that the other side cannot really do anything else except watch me.
Yes.
Meaning, they will their PC will be in my control.
Hmm.
It's something as simple as that.
Right.
So now that is all that is possible. I mean, the online examinations they do that. So it's something like saying, if I have 50 students, let me get their PC control first, so that at least some technology wise I keep them engaged. And then I ask them to keep the video on. And there are technologies which can find out, initially there must be a registration done, which hardly anybody does. The students must be registered, their photographs must be registered. The learning management system must have an image processing software which should, periodically map the images and so on. Now, all this is basically technology, and it takes both the effort and time investments from the institution's perspective. And it needs very good bandwidth. It needs a lot of devices, the access to devices, and it should work in any place across the country.
Hmm.
So if we can at some point of time take care of these things, then probably this will be more effective. Now, added to all this, what one should also do is subscribe to content providers like Coursera, edX, and so on. The curriculum is, everybody knows the curriculum for a BA, for a BSc, for a BCom, and so on, for an engineering program, and so on. What one can do, most of these courses are 10 hours, 12 hours, 15, maximum 15 hours modules, which 15 hours is one credit. Now, if you have a three credit program in a particular semester, for example, let's say some uh, part of physics is being taught,
Hmm.
and mechanics, which is part of physics, is being taught to a 12th standard guy. Now, if that is the requirement, what one can do, and if it is a 3 credit program, which means about 45 hours of teaching learning in a classroom, otherwise would happen. then you will actually need to figure out 3-4 modules from, let's say, a list of courses that are available in Coursera or edX or whatever, and put them together, create the curriculum, and tell the student that you need to go through these 3 programs. What it ensures is, first of all, the content credibility, because it's created by the best of the professors across the world, from best of the universities. The content is vetted, it is verified, and that's very, very important, because most of the I mean, what I mean, if I am a very good teacher, then, and if I understand my concepts extremely well, and if I can translate that through some kind of examples and scene setting, and create an experiential kind of learning, then it helps. But most of the faculty may not be like that. So therefore, you need content which is already vetted, which is already
There,
taken care of in
line.
terms of quality and so on. And every institution must be insisted to subscribe to that kind of content, and make that content available through the learning management platforms which the institutions will probably have. And the student will be, he will at least get 75-80% of the job done through this process. One may say, the institutions may counter argue, saying that this whole process is going to be expensive. Of course, it's going to be expensive, but then there is another possibility which the institutions must explore here, is, if I am an institution into commerce, let's assume, and you are an institution, another institution which has, let's say, 2,000 students. I have 5,000 students, and there are 3-4 other commerce-based institutions. Now, why can't all of them come together and pool their resources? The best in economics, the best in accounts, best in, and so on. And then they also pool into the content. They all run together a common LMS and run the content. So they subscribe. So they get, on the volumes, they get price reductions. And unless those collaborations, unless those consortiums happen, I don't see this process gaining traction anytime soon. Some people who have the wherewithal will do it, but most of them may, spend time doing something. I mean, there people will obviously come on Zoom and give some lectures, but it may not really be worth it from a student's perspective.
Yes, yes. Very great insight about it, because I'm sure, yes, if content is available online to the students, even at times students really prefer to go online and study those contents. So why not university itself upload them, and just professors can have interactive sessions, the discussions may be more interactive ones. So I'm sure more way to for the blended learning or online virtual learning, what Indian education is all talking about. So what do you think of Eduvoice as an initiative?
It's a good initiative, bringing people from academics together, trying to understand each one's point of view. There are many good teachers in this country, but many of them are unsung and not given the kind of importance that's required to be given. If Eduvoice can identify those teachers, bring them together on a single platform, and create, maybe give them avenues to create content, to put their point of view forward. It's always good, and there is a big deficit on the research that happens in our institutions. Fundamentally, because people don't come together, they don't talk to each other. Even in a single institution, for example, in an engineering institution which I belong, to which discipline I belong, the mechanical engineering people seldom talk to electrical engineering, electronics engineering, or whatever. And it's the same story in a science college. The physics fellow doesn't talk to the chemistry fellow. Mathematics fellow doesn't talk to physics fellow. I'm not saying that they don't do good research. They all do good research. Some of them must be doing extremely good research that's cited everywhere, and they may have very good Scopus index and so on. But what does it mean at the end of the day to the research quotient of the country? So, are there any products that come out of the universities? Are there any IPRs that belong to the country, that belong to the institution, that belong to the person concerned, which together come to create products? So that is somehow not happening. So if Eduvoice can bring those kind of initiatives together and make people interact together, it's always good. Teachers are probably the only brand who probably believe that they're all good managers by themselves. They want to do everything themselves. That's not collaborative working. So you need to make them realize that unless they come together and try and solve problems of the community or the society uh, with that as the focus and not just a paper publishing as the focus, then things will improve. And if Edu Service can do all that, nothing like it.